The night was suffocating, the kind of dark that presses into your chest and steals your breath. I was bleeding out on that god-forsaken highway, bullets tearing through the truck, Javier's screams fading beside me as the cartel closed in. Los Zetas, their guns blazing, their laughter cold. But it wasn't just them. It was the white cops, Harrow and Cole, standing in the shadows, smirking as they set me up to die, their badges glinting like a traitor's promise. I'm Marcus Reyes, ex-Navy SEAL, and I shouldn't be alive. They thought they'd buried me in that ambush, thought they'd silenced me with blood and fire. They were wrong. Now, I'm hunting them. Every last one of them, through the deserts and streets they thought they owned. This isn't just revenge, it's a reckoning. Stick around, because this story's got teeth, and it bites hard. I remember the night it started. The air was thick, heavy, with that Texas heat that clings to your skin like a second shadow. It was late, past midnight, and I was driving my old pickup down Highway 17, just outside San Ignacio, a speck of a town hugging the Mexico border. The road stretched out ahead, endless and black, the kind of quiet that presses into your ears until you hear your own heartbeat. I'd been a Navy SEAL for 12 years, Marcus Reyes, 38 now, discharged and done with war. But that night, I wasn't a soldier anymore. I was just a mechanic, a guy who fixed engines and kept his head down, trying to outrun the ghosts of my past. The radio crackled, some old Tejano song buzzing through the static, and Javier sat beside me, humming along, his boots tapping the floorboard. He was my best friend, had been since we were kids running wild in El Paso, him with his quick grin, and me with my quiet stare. We'd survived everything together, gang scraps, deployments, IEDs that should have taken us both. Now he was my shadow, working odd jobs with me, keeping the demons at bay. You ever miss it, Marcus? He asked, his voice soft, cutting through the hum. The action, the rush. I kept my eyes on the road, my hands steady on the wheel, the scars on my knuckles catching the faint dashboard glow. No, I lied, my voice low, rough from years of shouting over gunfire. This is better, quiet, simple, no one shooting at us. He chuckled, shaking his head, but I felt the weight of his question, the pull of something I'd buried deep. Then I saw it, a flicker in the dark, headlights off to the side. Two vehicles parked near an abandoned gas station, just off the highway. Instinct kicked in, that old SEAL itch crawling up my spine, and I slowed the truck, squinting through the windshield. What's that? Javier muttered, leaning forward, his hand brushing the glove box where we kept a .45, just in case. I didn't answer, pulling off the road, gravel crunching under the tires, as I parked 100 yards back, killing the engine, the night swallowing us whole. Through the dark, I made out a Crestwood PD cruiser, unmistakable, white with blue stripes, and a black SUV, its doors open, shadowy figures moving between them. Two white cops, Officer Jack Harrow, eyed and buzz-cut, his smirk visible even from here. Officer Ethan Cole, leaner, twitchy, his hand on his holster, stood with three cartel types, Los Zetas by their tattoos, their rifles slung casually as they handed over a duffel bag. Cash for drugs, I figured, meth, coke, whatever poison they were pumping through San Ignacio. My gut twisted, not from fear, but disgust. Cops and cartels, hand in hand, rotting this town from the inside. Marcus, we should go, Javier whispered, his voice tight, his hand inching toward the glove box. But I shook my head, my eyes narrowing, as Harrow opened the bag, pulling out stacks of bills, Cole nodding like a damn accountant. I wasn't naive. San Ignacio had its shadows, but seeing it up close, badge to badge with killers, hit different. Then Harrow's head snapped up, his eyes locking on my truck, a glint of recognition cutting through the dark. Shit, I muttered, my heart kicking up, not from panic, but that old rush Javier had asked about. Drive, Javier hissed, but it was too late. Harrow barked something, pointing, and the Zetas turned, rifles up, their faces hard under the moonlight. I slammed the truck into gear, tires spinning gravel as I floored it, but the first shots came fast, cracks splitting the night, bullets punching through the windshield, glass shattering around us. Javier yelled, a sharp pained sound, and I glanced over, blood blooming on his chest, his hands clutching the seat, his eyes wide with shock. No, no, I choked, my voice breaking, my foot heavy on the gas, as the truck lurched forward, the Zetas SUV roaring after us, the highway blurred, shots ringing in my ears, the truck shuddering as bullets tore into the tailgate. Javier slumped, his breath ragged, his hand grabbing mine, sticky with blood. Marcus, go, he rasped, his voice fading, and I felt it, the snap, the break, the moment everything I'd buried came roaring back. I swerved off the road, the truck crashing through brush, the Zetas closing in, and I knew I wasn't running, not anymore. The truck jolted as it hit the ditch, metal groaning, tires spinning uselessly in the dirt. The highway fading behind us as the Zetas SUV screeched to a stop 50 yards back. Bullets punched through the cab, a relentless hail that shattered the rear window, glass raining down on me like jagged snow. I ducked low, my heart hammering, my hands slick with Javier's blood, as I gripped the wheel, his ragged breaths beside me tearing through the chaos like a knife. Hang on, Javi, I whispered, my voice shaking, my eyes darting to the side mirror. 5 Zetas spilling out, rifles up, their shouts sharp in Spanish, their silhouettes dark against the SUV's headlights. I'd been here before, Fallujah, Kabul, places where death came fast and loud, but this was different. This was personal, a betrayal that cut deeper than any bullet. Javier's hand fell limp, his chest heaving once, twice, then still, his eyes glazing over as blood soaked the seat, pooling on the floorboard. No, no, damn it, no, I roared, my voice breaking, my fist slamming the dash, the pain in my ribs from a stray shot flaring but meaningless, compared to the hole ripping through me. He was gone, my brother, my anchor, the one constant in a life of shadows, taken by these bastards and the cops who'd set us up. The Zetas advanced, their boots crunching gravel, their laughter cold, mocking, a sound that twisted my grief into rage. I grabbed the .45 from the glove box, my hands steady despite the blood, the seal in me waking up, slow, deliberate, a machine forged in fire. I kicked the door open, rolling out into the brush, the truck a shield as bullets slammed into its side, sparks flying, the air thick with gunpowder and dust. My shoulder burned where a round had grazed me, blood soaking my jacket, but I ignored it, crawling through the dirt, my breath shallow, my mind narrowing to one thing: survive, then avenge. I flanked them, moving low through the scrub, the night my ally, as I circled behind, their shouts growing louder. Donde está el cabrón? Their rifles sweeping the dark. I saw Harrow and Cole now, parked 100 yards back in their cruiser, watching, their silhouettes smug against the flashing lights. Bastards, they'd planned this, sold me to Los Zetas like a lamb to slaughter, thought they'd bury me out here with Javier. My jaw clenched, my grip tightening on the gun, the cold steel grounding me as I crept closer, the Zetas backs exposed, their arrogance my opening. The first went down with a suppressed shot, center mass, a muffled pop, his body dropping before he could scream, blood blooming dark on his vest. The second turned, his rifle swinging, but I was on him, knife flashing, a quick slash across his throat, his gurgle lost in the wind as he crumpled, his weapon falling into the dust. The third shouted, firing wild, bullets chewing the ground near me, but I rolled, my shot catching his chest, a wet thud as he fell, his rifle clattering uselessly. The last two spun, their shouts frantic, but I moved fast, years of training snapping into place, my body a blur, as I took one with a headshot, the other with a knife to the gut, twisting it until he stopped moving, blood pooling around my boots. I stood over them, chest heaving, blood dripping from my shoulder, the night silent, now but for the wind, and the distant hum of the cruiser. Harrow and Cole were still there, watching, thinking their cartel dogs had finished me. I wiped my knife on my sleeve, my breath steadying, my rage a cold, focused flame. Javier was gone, but I wasn't, not yet. I slipped into the Samas, the dark swallowing me, their ambush a failure, my survival a promise. They'd pay every last one of them. The desert stretched out before me, vast and unforgiving, a sea of sand and scrub lit by a crescent moon that barely cut through the black. I stumbled through it, my boots sinking into the dirt, my shoulder burning where the bullet had grazed me, blood soaking my jacket, a dark stain spreading with every step. Javier's face haunted me, his wide eyes, his last gasp, the way his hand had gone limp in mine, and it fueled me, kept me moving when my body screamed to stop. I'd left the truck behind, a wrecked coffin for my brother, the Zetas' bodies sprawled around it, their blood seeping into the earth. I'd survived their ambush, but survival wasn't enough. Not anymore. Revenge was. I didn't know how long I walked. Hours, maybe, the night blurring into a haze of pain and rage. My shirt clung to me, sweat mixing with blood, my breath ragged but steady, the SEAL training kicking in. Keep moving, stay alive, find a way. The Sia Mosque was a graveyard, coyote bones scattered in the sand, the wind whispering through the mesquite, but it was my refuge now, a place to disappear, to plan, to turn their betrayal into their undoing. Harrow and Cole thought I was dead, thought the Zetas had finished me. They'd learn soon enough. I wasn't a ghost yet, but I'd haunt them until they wished I was. I found a hollow near a dry creek bed, a shallow dip shadowed by a Joshua tree, its twisted branches clawing at the sky. I sank to my knees, my hands trembling as I pulled the burner phone from my pocket, cracked but working, a lifeline I'd kept from my old life. I dialed Lena, my sister, her voice the only anchor I had left. It rang twice before she picked up, her tone sharp, sleepy but alert. "Marcus, where the hell are you? It's 3 in the morning. Lena," I rasped, my voice rough, breaking as I leaned against the tree, the bark scraping my back. "They got Javier. Ambush, Cartel, Los Zetas. Harrow and Cole set it up. I'm hurt, but I'm alive. Barely." Silence stretched, then her voice hardened, a steel I knew well. "Lena, the PI, the fighter who dug into San Ignacio's rot for years." "What?" "Marcus, slow down. Where are you? What happened?" Her words came fast, urgent, the sleep gone, replaced by a fury that mirrored mine. "Highway 17, I said, my breath shallow, my eyes scanning the dark, as if the Zetas might rise from the sand. Saw them dealing, cops and cartel, cash for drugs. They spotted me, set me up. Zetas hit us hard. Javier's gone, shot, dead in the truck. I took them out, but Harrow and Cole, they're behind it. I'm in the Sia Mosque now, hiding." "Jesus," she breathed, her voice trembling, then steadying, her anger cutting through the line. "Javier. Oh God, Marcus, I'm so sorry. Those bastards, I've got dirt on them, been tracking their moves. Stay put, I'm coming for you." "No," I snapped, my voice sharper than I meant, my hand tightening on the phone, blood smearing the screen. "Not yet. I'm not running, Lena. They think I'm dead. Let them. I'm going after them. Harrow, Cole, the Zetas, all of them. They took Javier. They'll pay." "Marcus, you're hurt. You can't," she started, but I cut her off, my tone low, final, a vow etched in the blood on my hands. "I can," I said, my voice steady now, the SEAL waking fully, the hunter rising from the ashes of my grief. "I've got nothing left. They burned it all. Get me intel, where they meet, what they're planning. I'll handle the rest." She paused, then sighed, a sound heavy with worry, but laced with resolve. "Okay, but you're not doing this alone. I'll dig deeper. Meet me tomorrow. Edge of town, old gas station on Route 12. Stay alive, Marcus, for me." I hung up, my breath steadying, my eyes drifting to the knife in my hand, its edge glinting faintly in the moonlight, Javier's blood still staining the blade. The Sia Mosque was silent, but my mind roared. Harrow's smirk, Cole's twitchy grin, the Zetas' laughter as they fired. I'd survived their ambush, crawled out of the grave they dug for me, and now I'd bury them. I leaned back against the tree, the pain in my shoulder a dull roar, my rage a quiet flame, growing. They'd pay, slowly, surely, until their world was ash. The desert sun rose slow and merciless, painting the sand gold as I crouched in the hollow. On my shoulders stiff with dried blood, my hoodie torn and crusted where the bullet had grazed me. It was dawn, 10 days since my house burned, and I'd slept maybe an hour, fitful, haunted by Javier's last gasp, his hand slipping from mine. My burner phone buzzed beside me, Lena's text lighting the screen. Route 12, old gas station, noon. Got intel. Harrow and Cole hit a Zetas stash tomorrow night. West Side warehouse. Stay alive. I read it twice, my jaw clenching, my fingers brushing the Glock at my hip. Loaded, suppressor on, a silent promise of what was coming. I cleaned my wounds with water from a canteen in my duffel, the sting sharp but grounding, my hands steady as I tore strips from my shirt to bandage the graze, the blood crusting over like a badge. The same Mick was quiet, coyotes gone, wind whispering through the scrub, but I felt them out there, Harrow and Cole, smug in their precinct, thinking they'd won, the Zetas licking their wounds, planning their next move. I'd survived their ambush, taken 5 of their men, but it wasn't enough, not yet. Javier's face burned in my mind, his grin fading into blood, and I knew I'd hunt them all, slow and cold, until they felt the weight of what they'd done. I reached the gas station by noon, the old pumps rusted and silent, the building a skeleton of peeling paint and broken glass. Lena's sedan rolled up, gravel crunching, her sharp features tight with worry as she stepped out, her leather jacket slung over her shoulder, her dark ponytail swaying as she crossed to me. "Marcus," she said, her voice low, breaking as she saw me, blood-streaked, torn, alive but barely. She hugged me hard, her arms trembling, her breath hitching against my shoulder. "God, I thought I'd lost you too."
"I'm here,"
I said, my voice rough, my arms steady around her, the warmth of her grounding me, pulling me back from the edge. "Javier's gone, but I'm here. They'll pay, Lena. I swear it." She pulled back, her eyes blazing, her hands gripping my arms as she studied me, my bloodied shoulder, my torn hoodie, the knife at my belt. "You're a mess," she said, her tone sharp but soft, her worry warring with her resolve. "But you're alive, and that's enough for now. Here's what I've got. Harrow and Cole are meeting Los Zetas tomorrow night. Warehouse west of town, old meat packing plant. They're picking up a shipment, meth, cash, guns. Cartel's pissed about last night, but they're still in bed with the cops." I nodded, my jaw tightening, my mind already mapping the hit. West Side meat packing plant, shadows to hide in, angles to strike from. "Good," I said, my voice low, steady, the seal waking fully as I took the folder she handed me. Photos, maps, schedules, a blueprint of their corruption. "They think I'm dead. Let's keep it that way. I'll hit the warehouse, take their stash, turn it back on them." "Marcus," she started, her voice trembling, her hand grabbing my wrist, her eyes searching mine. "You're hurt. You can't take them all alone. Let me help. Contacts. Backup." "No," I cut in, my tone sharp, final, my eyes locking onto hers with a fire that hadn't dimmed since the ambush. "This is my fight, Lena. They took Javier, burned my life. I need you out there, digging, spreading this, keeping them off balance. I'll handle the blood." She sighed, her grip tightening, then softening, her voice low. "Okay, but you come back, Marcus. For me." I nodded, a silent vow, and she left, her sedan fading down the road, leaving me alone, with my gear, and my rage. That night, I struck the West Side warehouse, a hulking shell of concrete and rust, its windows dark, its lot packed with Reaper's bikes, and the Zetas SUV. I moved slow, silent, my goggles cutting through the dark, 5 Reapers outside, 2 Zetas inside, Kane's voice barking orders. I took the first Reaper with a knife to the throat, his gurgle lost in the wind, then the second with a baton to the skull, his body crumpling into the shadows. Inside, I planted a camera, Kane counting cash, Zetas unloading meth, and then I lit the fuse, a Molotov shattering against the crates, flames roaring as they scattered. their shouts swallowed by the blaze. I slipped away. The fire my message. I'm alive, and I'm coming. The desert sun hung low, a blood-red disk sinking into the horizon, as I crouched in the shadows of a dry wash, my hoodie crusted with dirt and blood, my shoulder throbbing where the bullet had grazed me 11 days ago. San Ignacio was a whisper in the distance, its lights faint against the dusk, but I wasn't heading back, not yet. Javier's face burned in my mind, his last gasp echoing in my ears, and it fueled me, kept me sharp as I gripped the Glock in my hand, its suppressor a cold weight against my palm. I'd survived their ambush, taken 5 Zetas, but it wasn't enough, not until Harrow, Cole, and every last one of their cartel dogs paid in blood. Lena's intel had come through at noon, her text lighting my burner phone with a target. A Zeta's stash house, a crumbling adobe shack, 10 miles west of town, tucked in a ravine off a dirt road. 3 Reapers, 2 cartel runners, a haul of meth and cash they thought was safe. I'd moved at dusk, my truck hidden a mile back in a thicket of mesquite, my boots silent on the sand as I approached, the air thick with the tang of sage and dust. The shack loomed ahead, its windows boarded, a faint lantern glow, seeping through the cracks, the hum of a generator buzzing in the stillness. I saw them, 3 Reapers lounging outside, their bikes gleaming under the fading light, their vests patched with the skull and snake emblem. 2 Zetas inside, their voices rough with Spanish, counting stacks of bills. I didn't rush, rushing got you killed, and I'd learned that the hard way in Fallujah, watching rookies bleed out for impatience. I crept closer, my breath slow, steady, the seal in me waking fully, a hunter stalking prey in the dark. The first Reaper was easy, a big bastard with a shaved head, smoking a cigarette by the bikes, his back to me, his laugh rough as he muttered about that dead seal. My knife flashed, a quick slash across his throat, his gurgle soft as he crumpled, blood soaking the sand, his cigarette falling to his out in the dirt. I dragged him into the shadows, my hands steady, my heart cold, Javier's blood on my hands, still fresh in my mind, driving me forward. The second Reaper turned, a wiry guy with a patchy beard, his chain dangling as he reached for a beer, his eyes catching the glint of my blade too late. "K," he started, but I was on him, my baton cracking against his skull with a dull thud that echoed in the quiet, his body slumping before he could scream, his beer spilling into the dust. The third, a lean bastard with a shotgun slung over his shoulder, heard it, spinning, his voice sharp as he shouted. "Intruso." I moved fast, my suppressed Glock up, a muffled pop catching him center mass, his shotgun clattering as he fell, blood pooling dark under the lantern's glow. Inside, the Zetas froze, 2 runners, wiry and tattooed, their rifles leaning against a table stacked with cash and meth baggies, their eyes wide as I stepped through the door, my knife dripping, my gun raised. "Who the hell?" one started, his hand lunging for his rifle, but I fired, 2 shots chest and head, his body jerking back, crashing into the table, cash scattering like leaves. The other dove, shouting, "Matalo," his pistol swinging up, but I rolled, my knife slashing his wrist, his gun dropping as he screamed, blood spraying the wall. I finished him with a baton to the temple, his body crumpling, silence falling heavy over the shack. I stood there, chest heaving, blood on my hands, Javier's, theirs, mine, mixing in the dust, the air thick with gunpowder and death. The stash was mine now, 2 duffels of cash, a crate of meth, evidence I'd turn against them. I planted a camera, its lens catching the carnage, the loot, streaming to my phone, a noose tightening. I torched the shack with a Molotov, flames roaring as I slipped into the night. The fire my message, I'm alive, and I'm hunting. Harrow and Cole would hear, feel the heat rising, and I'd keep it burning. The night was a heavy curtain over San Ignacio. 12 days since Javier died, the air cool and sharp as I leaned against the wall of my derelict garage, my hoodie torn, my shoulder bandaged with strips of an old shirt, the blood crusted over like a scar. The town was a live wire, whispers of the stash house fire spreading, reapers scattering, Harrow and Cole's names on every tongue. As the footage I'd sent Lena hit the streets, my burner phone buzzed, her text glowing. Stash hits got them rattled. Harrow's at the precinct, Cole's MIA, Zetas moving. Bar on 5th tonight. Stay sharp. My jaw clenched, my hand brushing the Glock, loaded, ready, a silent vow to Javier's ghost. I slipped into the shadows, my boots silent on the cracked pavement, the town's pulse quickening, cops patrolling double shifts, their eyes darting, reapers roaring past, their vests glinting with fear. The bar on 5th was a dive, neon flickering, windows dark, a Zetas haunt where they licked their wounds and planned revenge. I approached slow, my goggles cutting through the dark. 3 reapers outside, smoking, their bikes parked tight. 2 Zetas inside, their voices rough over the jukebox. Harrow's buzz-cut head bowed over a beer, his face twisted with rage. He was here, arrogant, exposed, thinking he'd outlast me. I didn't rush. Patience was my blade, honed in years of war. I took the first reaper with a knife to the throat, his gurgle soft as he slumped, blood soaking the gravel, his cigarette falling to his out. The second turned, shouting, but my baton cracked his skull, his body crumpling into the shadows, his bike tipping with a clatter. The third fired, a wild shot chewing the wall, but I rolled, my Glock's muffled pop catching his chest, his body falling with a wet thud. Inside, the bar was a haze of smoke and beer. Harrow at a table, 2 Zetas counting cash, their rifles slung carelessly. I planted a camera, its lens catching Harrow's snarl. Reyes is dead. Stop jumping at ghosts. I struck, Molotov through the window, flames roaring as they shouted, scattering, Harrow diving for cover. I slipped in, my knife slashing a Zeta's throat, his scream lost in the chaos, my shot dropping the other. Center mass, blood spraying the bar. Harrow fired, his bullet grazing my arm. But I lunged, pinning him, my knife at his throat, blood trickling down his neck. You killed Xavier, I growled, my voice low, breaking, my eyes burning into his panicked ones. Set me up, thought I'd die. You're wrong, Ray is he rasped, his voice trembling, but I cracked his jaw with my fist, blood streaming, his body slumping. I left him bleeding, the bar burning, the footage streaming, a shadow deepening their ruin. The dawn broke harsh over San Ignacio, 13 days since Javier's blood stained my hands. The town a cauldron of rage and fear as the bar footage hit, Harrow's snarl, the Zetas fall, flames roaring through the dive. I crouched in the garage, my hoodie soaked with sweat and blood, my arm stinging from Harrow's graze, my burner phone buzzing with Lena's text. Bar hits got them panicking. Harrow's at the precinct, Cole's hiding. Zetas pulling in muscle, quarry off 281. Tonight, 10 p.m. Feds sniffing. Be careful. My jaw clenched, my hand steady on the Glock. The heat was turning, and I'd make it burn. I moved at dusk, my truck hidden in a wash, my boots silent as I slipped through the alleys, the town alive with tension, cops doubling patrols, reapers fleeing, whispers of a ghost haunting their shadows. The quarry was a shadowed maze, pits and gravel, perfect for a trap. I reached it at 9 p.m. Men, my goggles cutting through the dark, Harrow and Cole near their cruiser, Harrow barking orders, Cole twitchy, 3 Zetas unloading cash, rifles up. I struck slow, the first Zetas with a knife to the throat, his gurgle lost in the wind. The second with a suppressed shot, his body crumpling. The third shouting, but my baton silenced him, his skull cracking. Harrow spun, his gun up. Raise, you're dead. Cole fired, bullets chewing gravel, but I rolled, my shot catching Cole's leg, his scream sharp. I took the cash, duffels heavy with bills, and slipped away, leaving them bleeding, shouting, the footage streaming, a fire they couldn't quench. The night was a furnace over San Ignacio, 14 days since Javier died. The town a live wire as the quarry footage spread. Harrow's rage, Cole's scream, cash spilling into the shadows. I sat in the garage, my hoodie torn, my wounds aching, my burner phone buzzing. Lena, they're breaking. Harrow's at the precinct, Cole's missing. Zeta's pulling out, the feds closing in. Stay low, they're desperate. My jaw clenched, my hand brushing the Glock. The breaking point was here, and I'd push them over the edge. I slipped into the precinct's shadows at midnight. Harrow in Holt's office, shouting, "Raise! He's everywhere." Holt growled, "Shut it down, or you're done." I planted a camera, catching their panic, then struck a Molotov through the window, flames roaring as they scattered, Harrow firing wild, Cole's voice a whimper from hiding. I slipped away, the footage streaming, a final crack in their empire. The sun was a relentless hammer overhead, beating down on the cracked asphalt of San Ignacio as I crouched behind the rusted husk of an abandoned car. My hoodie damp with sweat, my shoulder throbbing where the bullet had grazed me 10 days ago. It was noon, the day after I'd torched the West Side warehouse, and the town was buzzing, whispers spreading through the gas stations, the diners, the dusty streets, where folks kept their heads down, but their eyes sharp. The reapers were scrambling, their bikes roaring out of town in 2s and 3s, their meth stash gone up in flames, their swagger cracked by the ghost they couldn't name. I'd survived their ambush, taken Javier's killers, burned their lifeline, and now I was coming for more. I'd slipped back into town at dawn, my truck hidden a mile out in a dry wash, my burner phone clutched in my hand as I scrolled through Lena's latest text. Harrow and Cole are spooked, precinct's a mess, reapers pulling back. Zetas hit a bar last night, looking for you. Harrow was there, pissed. They're meeting tonight, old quarry off 281, 10 p.m. Be careful. My jaw tightened, my fingers brushing the Glock at my hip, loaded, suppressor on, a silent vow etched in steel. The quarry, remote, shadowed, a perfect spot for a deal or a trap. They thought I was dead, but the heat was rising, and I'd turn it against them, slow and cold, until they felt the burn. I moved through the back alleys, my boots silent on the cracked pavement, my hoodie pulled low to hide the blood-streaked face that'd become a ghost story in San Ignacio. The town was a pressure cooker, cops patrolling double shifts, their eyes darting, their hands twitchy on their holsters, reapers roaring past, their vests glinting, their faces hard with fear, whispers of Los Zetas lurking across the border, their anger simmering after I'd taken 5 of theirs. I felt it all, the weight of their panic, the tremble in their empire, and it fueled me, kept me sharp as I slipped into a derelict garage, its windows boarded, its air thick with oil and dust. My hideout for now, a place to breathe, to plan, to let the rage simmer into something deadly. Lena met me there at dusk, her sedan crunching gravel outside, her sharp features tight with worry as she stepped in, a folder under her arm, her leather jacket slung over her shoulder. "Marcus," she said, her voice low, breaking as she saw me, blood-crusted, hollow-eyed, alive but fraying. She crossed the room, her boots kicking up dust, and grabbed my arm, her grip fierce, her eyes searching mine. "You're pushing too hard. Look at you bleeding, barely sleeping. They're losing it out there." Harrow's screaming at Cole. "Zetas are hunting, but you're one man." "I'm enough." I cut in, my voice rough, steady, my hand closing over hers, grounding her as much as myself, the warmth of her touch pulling me back from the edge. "They took Javier. Lena burned my life, set me up to die. I'm not stopping, not until they're ash. What have you got?" She sighed, her grip softening, her eyes blazing with a mix of worry and resolve, as she handed me the folder, its pages spilling slightly, photos, maps, a grainy shot of Harrow at the bar, his buzz-cut head bowed over a beer, his face twisted with rage. "Quarry, off 281, 10 p.m., she said, her voice low, sharp. "Harrow, Cole, 3 Zetas runners, maybe more. They're moving cash, big haul, probably to calm the cartel after you hit their stash. Reapers are out, scattered or hiding, town's on edge, folks know something's up, but no one's talking yet." I flipped through the pages, my eyes scanning the details, a topo map of the quarry, its shadowed pits and narrow paths, a photo of Cole, twitchy and pale, outside the precinct, a list of Zeta's sightings, their movements erratic since the ambush. "Good," I said, my tone low, steady. my mind already mapping the hit. Quarry shadows, ambush points, escape routes. They're desperate, sloppy. I'll hit them tonight. Take the cash, turn it back on them. Marcus, she started, her voice trembling, her hand grabbing my wrist again, her eyes pleading. You're hurt, your shoulder, your ribs. You can't keep this up alone. Let me call in help. Contacts, someone. No, I snapped, my tone sharper than I meant, my eyes locking onto hers with a fire that hadn't dimmed since Javier's blood soaked my hands. This is my fight. They took him. Lena, my brother. I need you out there, spreading this, keeping the heat on. I'll handle the blood, my way. She held my gaze, her jaw tightening, then nodded, her voice low. Okay, but you come back, Marcus, for me. I nodded, a silent vow, and she left, her sedan fading into the dusk, leaving me alone, with my gear and my rage, the quarry looming in my mind, like a battlefield waiting to bleed. That night, I struck, 10 p.m., the quarry, a shadowed maze of pits and gravel, the air thick with dust and tension. I moved slow, silent, my goggles cutting through the dark. Harrow and Cole, near the cruiser, Harrow barking orders, Cole twitchy with his gun, 3 Zetas unloading cash from a van, their rifles slung carelessly. I took the first Zeta with a knife to the throat, his gurgle lost in the wind, then the second with a suppressed shot, center mass, his body crumpling into the shadows. The third turned, shouting, but I was on him, baton to the skull, his rifle falling as he hit the dirt. Harrow spun, his gun up, his voice a snarl. Carter, you're dead. Cole fired, wild, bullets chewing the gravel, but I rolled, my shot catching his leg, his scream sharp as he fell. I took the cash, 2 duffels, heavy with bills, and slipped away, leaving them bleeding, shouting, the night swallowing me whole. The heat was rising, and I'd turn it into an inferno. The morning broke over San Ignacio like a gunshot, harsh and sudden. 11 days since Javier died in my truck, since Harrow and Cole sold me to Los Zetas and lit the fuse of this war. I sat in the derelict garage, my hoodie crusted with blood and dust, my burner phone glowing as I watched the footage from the quarry hit the internet. Harrow's snarl, Cole's wild shots, the Zetas falling, cash spilling into the shadows. Lena had worked fast, her contacts seeding it to news sites, activist groups, social media, each clip tagged with their names, a raw indictment of their corruption, a bomb I'd built with every strike. By 8 a.m., the town was a firestorm. Hashtags like #San Ignacio corruption and #Justice for Rise trending, phones buzzing with rage, news vans rolling in, like wolves scenting blood. I leaned against the wall, my shoulder throbbing, my ribs aching from the motel fight, a coffee mug cold in my hand. As I scrolled the feeds, clips looping, comments piling up, cops and Cartel, burn them down. Reyes is a hero, justice now. The diner's TV blared across the street, the anchor's voice trembling, shocking footage links Crestwood PD officers to Los Zetas, violence, drugs, a town demanding answers. My name flashed, Marcus Reyes, mechanic, ex-SEAL, survivor, tied to a war no one could ignore, a ghost they couldn't bury. Protesters swelled outside the precinct, their chants, justice for Reyes, end corruption now. Shaking the air, signs raised high. Harrow and Cole out. San Ignacio deserves better. I watched through the garage's cracked window, my breath steady, my rage a quiet flame, as the crowd pressed against barricades, their voices a roar that drowned out the precinct's hum. Harrow stormed in, his buzz-cut head bruised, his arm trembling, his voice a snarl as he shoved past officers. Cole limped behind, his swollen lip quivering, his eyes wild with panic, his gun hand twitching. They'd lost their swagger, their empire fracturing, under the weight of my strikes and the town's fury. Inside Holt's office, the collapse unfolded. I couldn't hear their words, but their panic bled through the glass, a tableau of ruin I'd carved with blood and fire. Harrow slammed his fists on the desk, his voice hoarse, breaking. It's Reyes, he's alive, hitting us everywhere. He's got footage set us up. Cole paced, his hands shaking, his voice high. He's Seal. He knew we'd come. He's a ghost. Holt growled. Shut it down, or you're done. I is here, the mayor's screaming. I'm not sinking with you. I smirked. The footage, chop shop, trailer, warehouse, quarry, my noose, tightening with every loop, every share. Lena texted, it's working. Towns erupting, feds sniffing. Stay low, they're desperate. I nodded to the empty room, my jaw clenching, my hand brushing the Glock. Harrow and Cole were bleeding, the Zetas fracturing, and I'd fan the flames until they burned out. The night was a suffocating shroud over San Ignacio, the air thick with tension as the clock ticked past 2 a.m. 12 days since Javier's blood stained my hands. I sat in the garage, my hoodie damp with sweat, my burner phone buzzing with updates, protests raging, feds circling, Harrow and Cole cornered. I'd expected this, desperate men don't die quietly, and last night's quarry hit had pushed them to the edge. The door exploded inward, splintering under a heavy boot as Kane and Decker stormed in, guns blazing, their faces twisted with a feral rage. I'd ignited. You're done, Reyes, Kane roared, his voice hoarse, his bruised jaw trembling as he fired, the bullet punching through the wall above me, plaster dust raining down. Decker swung his baton, his swollen lip quivering, his eyes wild. You're nothing. I dove behind a workbench, bullets chewing wood, my heart hammering, not from fear, but that old Seal rush waking up, slow and cold. I'd rigged the garage, cameras in the rafters, streaming live, a trap set with precision. Kane fired again, the shot thudding into the bench, splinters flying, but I rolled, my knife flashing as I closed the distance. Decker swung, his baton whistling, but I twisted his wrist, snapping it, his yelp sharp as the weapon clattered away. Kane lunged, his gun raised, but I drove my elbow into his jaw, a crack as blood sprayed, his gun slipping to the floor. You're dead, Kane snarled, clawing at me, but I slammed him against the wall, plaster cracking, his breath a ragged wheeze. Decker scrambled for his gun, whimpering, he'll kill us. I kicked it away, driving my boot into his ribs, a sharp crack as he curled, gasping. Kane thrashed, his fist grazing my shoulder, but I took it, pinning him, my knife at his throat, blood trickling down his neck. You burned my life, I growled, my eyes locked on his panicked ones, my voice a storm breaking slow. Javier's dead because of you, your ambush, your betrayal, you're done. Please, Reyes, we can deal. Kane rasped, his voice breaking, but I silenced him with a fist to the jaw, his head snapping back, blood streaming. Decker whimpered, crawling, but I let them writhe. The cameras had it all, their end sealed. I stepped back, slipping into the night, their shouts fading, the trap sprung. The morning sun burned over San Ignacio, 13 days after Javier's death, the precinct a war zone as the garage footage hit. Kane and Decker's attack, my defiance, their ruin captured live. Protesters swelled into thousands, their chants, justice for Reyes, shaking the streets, news vans clogging every corner, the town a firestorm I'd lit. I sat in a cell, wrists cuffed, ribs bruised but calm. My trap had worked, their empire ash. The TV blared, officers Kane and Decker arrested, feds raid precinct after viral footage. Outside the crowd roared, signs high, end corruption. Kane shouted in Holt's office, Reyes set us up. Decker whimpered, he's a ghost. Holt growled, you're done, IA's taking you. At 3 p.m., Martinez unlocked my cell. You're out, they're gone. I stepped into the sun, the crowd erupting, Kane and Decker led out in cuffs, their faces hollow, the reapers scattered, my victory bitter but real. The trial came swift, 14 days after the ambush, a courtroom packed with fury and grief. I stood, bruised but steady, my voice low as I recounted. Javier's death, the ambush, their betrayal. Footage played, chop shop, warehouse, motel, garage, each clip a nail in their coffin, Lena's files burying them. Kane snarled, he's a vigilante. Decker whimpered, he set us up, but the jury saw, guilty, murder, corruption, conspiracy, 20 years each, no parole. I watched them led away, the crowd cheering, my revenge complete but hollow. San Ignacio healed in weeks, 15 days after the fire. Protests fading. The precinct purged. The Zetas gone. I stood in my shop's ruins, ash crunching underfoot. Lena beside me. You did it, she said, her voice soft. I nodded, my eyes on the debris. Javier's ghost lingered, the cost heavy. I'll rebuild, I said, my voice steady, a new start rising from the ashes. Months later, 16 days a memory, I stood on my new porch, beer in hand. San Ignacio free, Kane and Decker forgotten, the Zetas a whisper. On the night was quiet, stars bright, and I breathed deep. The scars fading, a new life forged from blood and fire.